How important is our personal data? And more importantly, who should control our data? Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, we're talking about one of the, if not the most important topic of our time, data ownership. The idea to discuss this topic was sparked when I was reading Yuval Noah Harari's book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. In the book, Harari asks the question, who owns the data? Does the data about my DNA, my brain, my life belong to me, to the government, to a corporation, or to the human collective? To me, this sounded like a fascinating question, so I thought we should spend some time talking about it. Let's get started. The evolution of valuable assets. In this book, Yuval Noah Harari explains that what the most valuable assets are has shifted over time. He explains that during the agricultural era, land was paramount. Politics revolved around land control, leading to divisions between aristocrats and commoners. Then during the industrial era, machines and factories took precedence, causing social splits between capitalists and proletarians. And now, in the information era, data has become the most critical asset. Harari explains that if data is concentrated in only a few hands, this could result in unprecedented societal divisions. We can already see this happening. The rise of data giants. Companies like Google, Facebook, Baidu, and Tencent have already amassed large amounts of data about customers. Harari explains that these companies initially operated as attention merchants, offering their services for free to capture users' attention and to sell their advertisements. For example, Facebook started off by allowing users to socialize online and to share their lives with their friends. Then they started selling advertisements to its users. However, according to Harari, the true value of these platforms lies in the data that they collect, which surpasses the advertisement revenue that they earn. In this model, users are not the customers, but the product itself. Think about it. You share so much of your life on these platforms. As a result, these platforms might know more about you than you know about yourself. Google will know almost everything you think about because you inevitably search something on that topic on Google search. Google Maps will know exactly where you went and where you are planning on going and where you would like to or hope to go one day. Instagram and Facebook will know exactly what interests you because you stop scrolling to watch particular reels and stories that interest you, or you like your favorite items. Netflix will know exactly what kind of movies keep you engaged and emotionally invested. And your health app will know most things about your health, your exercise patterns, your heart rate, your blood pressure, etc. These are all kinds of data about you, about who you are, and what you like. These companies can create a virtual version of you based on the data that they are collecting. Soon, as technology evolves, companies may be able to collect even more intimate data about you. They'll package this data in a fancy new device and entice you into buying it. And even if one day you wake up and you realize you don't want to share your data, the world might be in such a place that you might not have a choice. Harari says that if later in life you choose to disconnect, insurance agencies might refuse to insure you, employers might refuse to employ you, and healthcare services might refuse to take care of you. The challenges of data regulation. Now, the problem with regulating data ownership is very complex. Because unlike tangible assets, data is intangible, ubiquitous, easily copied, and can be replicated an infinite number of times. So traditional methods of ownership and control will not work with data. Think about how land ownership works and how complicated transferring a land is. Now compare it to how easily you can transfer data from one place to another. Harari emphasizes the urgency of addressing the issue of regulating data ownership to prevent societal collapse. Potential approaches to data ownership. Harari recognizes that there are multiple ways that the world can go about regulating data ownership and taking away control of this data from big data companies. Number one, nationalization of data. Governments could take control of personal data to curb large corporations gaining too much power by owning all our personal data. However, this might lead to digital dictatorships with states wielding excessive control over their citizens. Harari explains that politicians thrive on being able to play on the emotions of citizens, and if we give them personal data about all citizens in the wrong hands, this could result in a catastrophe. He says that once politicians can press our emotional buttons directly, generating anxiety, hatred, joy, and boredom at will, politics will become a mere emotional circus. If we thought that private corporations like Google and Meta owning our personal data was dangerous, then Harari suggests that governments owning our personal data could be far more dangerous. Number 2, personal data ownership. The alternative is for individuals to own their data, deciding how it's used and monetized. This idea might sound very appealing because it's our personal data, so who better to own it than us? But implementing this might be challenging because of the intangible nature of data, the ease of transferring and making copies of data, and the difficulty in controlling the flow of data. Harari says because unlike land and machines, data is everywhere and nowhere at the same time, it can move at the speed of light, and you can create as many copies of it as you want. Number 3, collective data ownership. Data could be viewed as a communal resource managed collectively for the public good. Now, while this approach sounds great, for it to work, we'll have to establish robust frameworks of fair use of data for collective good and establish frameworks on how to prevent exploitation of data. The current approach. The current approach used by most countries when regulating data ownership is best understood when we look at the GDPR of the EU. The General Data Protection Regulations of the European Union is the premier data protection law in the world right now and the blueprint that has been used by most countries in establishing their data protection laws. So how does the GDPR deal with data ownership? Firstly, the GDPR gives individuals or data subjects strong rights over their data, including the right to access, the right to rectification, and even request for erasure of their personal data under certain conditions. Secondly, companies are seen as data stewards and not data owners. Organizations or data processors and data controllers must obtain explicit consent before collecting personal data, process data lawfully and transparently, and minimize data collection to only what is necessary. So it looks like the GDPR is shifting the ownership of data from big corporations to individuals. It's treating data as a user's personal asset, and it's requiring the corporations to treat it with care. Now, while this is a good idea in theory, in practice it can be a little more complex because users usually unknowingly give access to their data. And more importantly, users feel like they have no option but to consent to these companies collecting their data. For example, if I want to use any of the social media platforms, then I need to consent to them collecting my data. The terms and conditions they present to me when I sign up very clearly says that I must consent to the platform collecting my data if I want to use the network. This means I have two options. Number 1, I can consent to the company collecting my data and enjoy the infinite dopamine hit that the software gives. Or number 2, say that I don't consent and not use a social media network. Now this is when most people will break down and give consent. Now you can't blame people because nobody likes to feel excluded. So acts like the GDPR, although they are a step in the right direction, don't solve the problem fully. Big data companies are still able to collect enormous amounts of data on us. Now what's the solution to all this? I genuinely don't know. But it's clear that regulating data ownership is one of the critical challenges that we face in this era. As Harari suggests, without effective regulation, we risk deepening societal divides and losing control of our personal information. So it's imperative for policymakers, technologists, and society at large to engage in this discussion and develop solutions that balance innovation with individual rights. If you found this discussion useful, please do consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And I highly do recommend reading this book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, because it does have some truly unique insights. I'll see you in another episode. Take care. Bye.